If social media were a human being, it's an underdeveloped, immature, social creature who has no idea of its consequences. Now, social media isn't a living, breathing creature without its content producers, us. Right. But social media and the people who learned it along the way learned it or got it when they were 27 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old. And so we have to understand that the learning of these channels is very immature as well. So we are very knee-jerk and quick to respond, to opine, to broadcast. But without broadcast or media training, a broadcaster doesn't necessarily know the same rules or regulations that a governing body like actual broadcasters have to follow.
Welcome back to another episode of What Matters Most. We are here with Joe Whitbread. We've already had a great conversation going with him. We're going to talk a little bit more about connection. We touched on connection in the last episode, and I want to kind of discover and peel back some of the layers of what you have to say with connection versus what's a real connection on social media, and what people are striving for connection and they're not getting what they want. They'll never get what they want because social media doesn't provide always that connection that people are searching for. Yeah. What do you have to say about connection?
Yeah, you're right. Thanks for having me. The ability to connect has always been a human behavior, carnal probably. That's why we created communities. That's why we lived in our caves and our shelters and then came together. Right? Connection is a great word for it. There's all kinds of variations of that. But you're right. We are seeking a connection online exponentially and globally because it's available to us. So we're actually using the same habits and the same ways that we seek connection, that we learned behavior and even carnal behavior, that we're never going to be satisfied because we're using the same ways to get it. But to your point, they just simply don't exist that way. There is, we watched this during the pandemic. Anyone learned that a Zoom meeting became the only way we might be able to connect with someone. And we learned very quickly that while we could get the basic gist of a staff meeting out to our employees or our people, the human culture, the coffee talk, the morning, leaning up against the boss's door to have a real meaningful connection in a work environment was lost. And we really started to miss that. What we've neglected to do as a technology culture is we've just exponentially blasted our ability to connect. We've gone global with the ability to network with important decision makers on a business sense or personally connect with that podcaster or that celebrity that we would have been untouchable when we grew up. But we still aren't getting that ability. So, I mean, where we go from here is fun to watch. I love this stuff. I eat this stuff up because I really believe that you can't get away from what's natural. I think I always like to use the baseball diamond. I'm a baseball guy, but let's call home plate where we started as humans, cave dwellers, and we got together in communities and created societies and, governance and everything else. And then we kind of went out to sort of first and third base on the baseball diamond. That was global. And we're right here, but I think, and the point of my diagram is we're coming back. It won't be home plate, but it'll be second plate in my baseball diamond. Stay with me. But we went from a singular connection, what human values and communities were, and we went outside, and we could connect with anybody at any time. To this moment, if you truly get the eye or emotional connection with a business, a brand, or a celebrity, someone you follow, that you love, you and I might have had to write a fan letter. and then wait 3 weeks and get an autograph back. It did exist, but that even the tactile texture of the paper with the ink had an emotional reverence to it that digital doesn't have. However, we have all had that dopamine hit of that product or brand that actually responded to us, that verified account that actually gave us the validation we were looking for, negative or positive. And so that was an element. But yeah, we went outside, and then I actually believe the next iteration of this is to come back. I think we are going to see, and we already are in many cases, we are going to see the baker, the butcher, and the candlestick maker. While we are going online to buy boxed merchandise and purchase things in a marketing world, what we're missing most is the connection. A box that's delivered to our front step just doesn't give that. In fact, many of us will rush out just to greet the driver that delivered the box, because at least that's human.
That's right.
And while many would argue that we're going to go to the drone delivery and robotic delivery, which is already happening in major centers, I'm not saying we won't go to more technology. I will say that we are going to go to that, but still crave human. So in my opinion, the best marketed versions, and of course we can bring this home to the family values of it, is going to be those that can try to maintain a human connection to the YouTube download or the song we like to stream. Or, I think media companies really have to look themselves in the mirror as they syndicate programming to make it more palpable for their budgets. But we're watching radio shows disappear. We're watching the human component of connected to the weather. So connection is a wonderful topic. Obviously, I can take it 1,000 ways, but you're absolutely right to feel that. Your audience is feeling that. I'm feeling that. There is so much more to being in a living room like this than to being online like they are.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It reminds me back to my communications courses at college. They talked about the village, and then we expanded and now we're in this global village. And I think for me the one of the points where it was like where I actually realized how connected we are is like when Michael Jackson died, instantly everybody knew. Like it was like, and I remember where I was, and it was kind of like, and I know it's like when Elvis died, like in different generations, it's kind of like that. But I think there was like, it was probably like there was a time gap, right? But we're all connected. Like instantly, I saw it, and then my brother texts me or whatever, and it's just like, like these events that sort of happen that we're kind of like connected to, and then it's like, but it's like sort of, I think the difference is how do we communicate that message or how we feel, right? We can, like, it's not just that this event happened, but it's how did we feel when it all happened.
Well, and this is actually what's so fascinating with your anecdote, is so true, is quite honestly the fundamental principle and problem that society has with social media. So media, remember, it's just called social media. If you take it down to the fundamental, social media. So media has always existed, or at least existed in a technology world in the 1900s. The media was always the share of the news. The social media was the opinion of the share. I think this is really important for us to understand. If you want the world to be a less divisive place, if you want the world to be kind, which I think all of us want, then what we have to actually recognize is we were reporting the news of Michael Jackson's death, but at the time, by the way, almost nobody knows this, but Farrah Fawcett died hours later. No one ever, another super celebrity, and it's a complete aside, but Michael Jackson stole all the social or digital headlines that day when another valued and loved celebrity died. I always feel bad for Farrah Fawcett. She never has a memory because Michael Jackson blew up the timeline, to your point. It was a reported news element. It went viral amongst us on our text messages, our phone calls, our family members. Then someone else died, but that was not the topic of news, and so much is competing for our attention. So I don't tell that as a celebrity anecdote. I tell you to let you know that someone else's family, in this case another celebrity, was lost in the timeline. And that's happened on many cases, multiple news stories. And then, of course, as you know, and I know in my profession, slow news days where you need to just find something that happens. But anyway, the point is, now we take to social media channels. We don't just report the news. We all have an opinion about the reported news. That's where it gets really difficult, because we all deserve an opinion. We just shouldn't necessarily say it out loud. And that has always been the case. But a lot of people do not have that switch, and so they simply say it out loud. They also don't think they have consequences. They might be in an anonymous account. They don't think their boss is watching or can attribute or affiliate. Data affiliates you with everyone you're contacted to. If you don't think it does, I promise it does. So be a kind human, because you can and will have consequences to everything you post, even if you don't know they exist. But it's a fascinating component of media versus social media and the ultimate connection we have, because we are more likely to react to an opinion media report than a media report of fact.
Mm-hmm. You touched on, COVID and how prevalent it became. Like when we couldn't have the human contact, how, the only thing we had was media. Mm-hmm. When I went to my doctor's office, like a year after COVID, what was on the screen was the shadow pandemic, how like the lack of connection has really affected globally people. Like, yes, they were connected through social media. Yes, they were connected but the impact of not having the human connection was huge. And I think sometimes when we're addicted to social media, or when we're like, even without COVID, we could be addicted to social media, and we could spend our days like connected to the global world, feeling connected, but at the end of the day, we're alone in our room. That's like really, really difficult. And I think sometimes with social media, the our definitions of connection doesn't quite fit our need. And that's where mental health or mental illness comes into play, and it's really, really hard. Have you, through your experience, seen that?
Yes, I love that you brought up mental health as a component of social behavior and social media. It's always been a shadow element, and mental health is something we have to pay attention to. It's also very important that we pay attention to our own. I think the world is, again, through consumerism and marketing, we worry too much about hashtags and colored shirts that we should wear on certain days. Mm-hmm. And so the message has really been lost. And I blame major corporations for this, unfortunately, through no fault of their own. When I say I blame them, mm-hmm. I understand why they would capitalize on a day for good. A day to solve problems or raise money on behalf of a product or program is wonderful. And a big voice to be able to do that is corporate and big dollars. So again, when I say I blame them, I don't mean I blame them for what they're doing. There's some amazing programs that are corporately backed or large celebrity backed. But what we've done as a shadow of that, unfortunately, is we've made the causes into corporate fed messages. And so we're not paying enough attention to actual mental health components, although we're getting links fed to us. We're learning that we can talk and be open. Social media, though, on mental health is incredibly related. I've always had the adage that the content we create isn't for us. It's actually for the timeline. And if you're like me, regardless of the platform you're using, Instagram, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, YouTube, the timeline has a temperature. It has an emotional temperature. There was a study done. I don't have the exact results, but the study through the September 11th, 2001, 2001 September 11th tragedies in New York City actually proved, I don't know what they used, and it's certainly available online, but they judged the temperature of a depressed world. The world became depressed for a number of years. Less happy, if you will. In Canada, if you think back to the Humboldt Broncos crash and how it truly impacted or affected people across the land, sticks outside their doors, we could all at least feel that we would have had a child on that bus. Many, unfortunately, did, and many had a family member connected. It showed how close a culture we were for our Canadian viewers. Those times of I really believe there's an energy. I'm a live performer. I use stage quite often to judge a feeling. I can write a script or a joke or an introduction, but it can change quickly. if there's an element within the audience or on the stage that we feel an emotion for. There's an empathy among a group of people as much as there are among all of us. There's an energy that impacts each of us. So social media is the antithesis of that. You can be in your timeline ready to look at whatever content you're aimed to get, or just scrolling mindlessly and be impacted by an emotional energy. And so for that reason, we all have a responsibility. If you have one follower and it's your mom, then you are an influencer. Why else would you be writing content? Why else would you be sharing that article? You're doing it for your audience, even though you don't know, which leads us to your content's not for you. It's for us. And unfortunately, we live in a world that would rather diarize or journal their opinions as though it's somehow a private diary with a lock and key. It's not. It's a public representation of emotion, of opinion, of anger, of happiness, of joy, of sorrow. And so we're diarizing online, and it's impacting everyone reading it. It's actually impacting the energy of a timeline. So we have a responsibility, if we want to hate on social media, at the very least, you don't have the right to hate on it if you are causing some level of the hate, some level of the sorrow, some level of the anger. Even if you've commented negatively for every right reason on the pizza that was delivered to your home for the wrong reasons, you are contributing a negativity that could be used in a different outlet. You have every right to order a pizza that comes the way you ordered it, but using social media to complain about it where others can watch in and eavesdrop does not create good social media mental health for the business owner or the deliverer or others who are actually viewing that negativity in your timeline.
And I think on the flip side, like, a lot of people who all they ever post is good, you know, and their life is good and they're going on the next trip and their kids are perfect, and everybody who watches them thinks, oh, well, their life is perfect and so my life is not. And so there's that flip side too, like, you know, there's the negative and there's the unrealistic positive.
Yeah, which is a negative, interestingly enough. And I'm not an integers or a math genius, but you know, a negative and a positive and a positive. And I remember learning all about that, and it's actually quite the same. You're right. There is a huge component, specifically among teenagers and young people, where seeing the values or family or love or something that you wish you had. We do this, and we've always done this among celebrities. It's why, frankly, we all work so hard to achieve a wealth that we've been sold will buy us things and stuff. You know, certainly we need money to survive, but do we need the money that we need to have the things and stuff? And many people will choose to work harder because we are told that more things and stuff, more wealth brings us more happiness. So that's non-social media, by the way. That's see how I always bring things back to non-social media? We are blaming a lot of things on social media that are simply human behavior. We have to have parenting, mentorship, leadership, teachers, people who are in control of our very changing emotional energies as young people, and changing brains, actual scientific brains that change. We have to continue to be loved, to be nurtured. And think of what nurtured means. Nurturing those thoughts, nurturing these energies. The questions in an interview like this are wonderful. These are questions too that we can have with our kids. These are questions that we can resolve. I love rhetorical questions, questions that are asked. You know, why is the sky blue? Which we sometimes ask to our kids. Doesn't have to have a scientific energy or answer. There's always some hotshot dad that can answer it, but maybe we're just asking it to be more philosophical. What are we doing when we purchase these things or stuff? What are we doing when we're entering our timeline and showing people our Mexican vacation? We're on the sandy beaches, our family is loving it, look at us. Imagine that family that can't afford it, that does have jealousy. It's a real human emotion. Now, we do have and can achieve the right to post whatever we want, whenever we want. And you should celebrate things that make you joyous and happy and bring something to the timeline. And there's a real fine balance between hiding that because you know there's a poor family that can't be on that Mexican beach, to showing it's okay to be happy. It's okay to show off the stuff. And yes, there's a balance, and we could talk all day and night about what's right and wrong and how many times you should show that you're spending and not spending. That's not what the purpose of this is. It's in understanding and empathy that your content's not for you. Your content is for your audience. And literally nothing would be watched, read, subscribed to, or felt in any way if you weren't posting it for us. And so understand, your audience will tell you. You don't have to be on social media long to know that your audience will tell you what they dislike or would like to debate you on. I mean, we live in a debative, extremely divisive society for that reason. And those social media channels know that, and that is how they're earning.
Yeah. No, it's interesting how you kind of like alluded to like being more cognizant of the fact that in a way we're all broadcasters, and I think we don't necessarily view ourselves as that. And so many of us, like I do it too, is I think like, well, I just want to post this, but I am also aware that I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to, do I want to post this and then recognize that, okay, there may be a bunch of conversation that goes along with it, especially if it's political or whatever. Sure. Like, do I want, do I want to engage in like, because sometimes my day can end up being very taken up by emotions, and and it's like, is it better to just, kind of like scroll past that and not comment, or like, I guess it's kind of like, it's like you say, finding that balance, but also being, good citizens, like we talked about in our last episode. Like it's sort of, it's a fine line, I think.
Yeah. So, and what ultimately what I think you're alluding to is we have to be cognizant of our mental health and our triggers, right? And plenty has been told, and I am not one to speak about that on a scientific level or have the schooling to represent that. But what I'm seeing on social media is a triggered approach to response, which turns into opinion in political and other things. By the way, this happens in a positive way. We see a triggered response, realizing potentially in our example of that family in Mexico that what they're really truly looking for, they haven't been on holidays for 6 years, they haven't had a lot of family time, we've watched someone in their family die or be lost, and we're actually really happy. So we're actually realizing, if you're connected to that component, and again, I don't have any psychological degrees to back this, but I do believe there are valuable positive mental health components where we might validate someone for sharing, not for us, not because we like the view of their beach resort, but because we knew they wanted us to like that. Yeah. And so again, the balance of the negative to the positive, always recognizing and being conscious, Drew, of your own personal well-being. We will, believe it or not, seek things that give us an ire, no different than we seek things that bring us joy. We can find ourselves scrolling TikTok and finding joyous things that make us joyous that many in our audience would find negative. Why do you want to delve into that political debate? Well, I really like this political debate. They're right. This one's right. They're right. This one's wrong. This one's right. This one's right. Others would say that was a very negative experience, but we're delving into it. No different than a book. You might read a book that is really heartbreaking, something that for whatever reason your emotion needed right now. You wanted to cry. You wanted to feel that. Or you wanted to feel love. You wanted to feel loved. You wanted to feel something. So we are always telling stories in marketing and in others. Stories is what humans are absolutely addicted to having, and it's to validate our own emotions. So your timeline is no different. The difference is, if social media were a human being, it's an underdeveloped, immature, social creature who has no idea of its consequences. If social media were a human, it would be about 19 years old. You and everyone in the audience is going back to when they were 19. You thought you knew everything, but you knew you didn't, or at least now you knew you didn't, right? And that's social media right now. Now, social media isn't a living, breathing creature without its content producers, us. Right. But social media and the people who learned it along the way learned it or got it when they were 27 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old. No children Unfortunately, we're on some of these social channels because they were only just invented, right? Or they were on them when they were invented, and the parents who were teaching it certainly weren't on them. And so we have to understand that the learning of these channels is very immature as well. So we are very knee-jerk and quick to respond, to opine, to broadcast. But without broadcast or media training, a broadcaster doesn't necessarily know the same rules or regulations that a governing body like actual broadcasters have to carry. That's why censorship has gone out the window. That's why bills being introduced in legislatures are for the good of content and safety for children. Because yes, big billionaire companies should have to follow the same rules as your local radio station, the same censorship requirements, the same CanCon, the same abilities to promote Canadian content. You'd never know who Anne Murray was if it wasn't for CanCon and other elements. But YouTube or Twitch or these other channels don't allow that. And that's what these are really about if you read them instead of complain about them or opine on your social media timeline because they're somehow taking away your freedom of speech. I can promise you that's not what's being taken away. Instead, we're holding large corporations accountable and everyone else on the channels they use to follow the nature of human connection, which is be kind, don't be mean, don't slander, don't throw someone under the bus. You have every ability to completely destroy someone's career now. You always did, but you probably had to throw a brick through their window and be really mean in person. Now, through one digital post, you can destroy a business. I've watched it happen. And we can talk about the physical destruction of it, but we can talk about the mental destruction. I mean, we all know suicide stats and others. It's not lost on anyone that that is a result, in many cases, of social media. So we have this immense power. No one has been given proper training, in my opinion, to use it properly from a media perspective. It's funny, we all want to be on social media, but no one considers themselves a member of the media. Everyone wants to complain about the media on social media, which makes you a member of the media. And that really bothers me because I am a member and have been a member of the media. And I have a different level and a different, trust and journalistic integrity. You're all members of the media now, all of you. And nobody wants to admit that they're a member of the media. You're the problem. Or you're not, and then you're the solution.
Yeah, I find that fascinating too because it keeps drawing me back to my college days because I took broadcasting, and one of the things that we were taught as in the news part of it was objectivity, and the reason for objectivity is so that we could see both sides of the story and report both sides of the story. We would take this person has that side of the story, and you take that interview clip and I feel like even the news has kind of like shifted to be one-sided, and I feel like that trains you're doing that, but that trains us to be one-sided, and it's sort of like if we learn to be a little more open-minded and objective in the sense that, okay, well, what is this side like, where's that coming from, and be open-minded to not just be like hearing from this talking, we're here preaching to the choir. It's sort of like it's easy to just kind of like talk in your own sounding room where everybody has the same opinions, but if we can be more open-minded and really hear, okay, where's that coming from, empathy, having to understand, then we could have a little better conversation and not have those where we're all fired up like, oh.
So I heard someone once told me it's only a debate if you're willing to have your mind changed. Otherwise, it's an argument. That was really, really powerful for me. So oftentimes what we'll witness online are arguments. Those are people that are hell-bent on their opinion, regardless of the topic. Could be a sports team, could be a politics, could be something innocuous. It's only a debate, which we need more debates. Debates make us better. Debates are how laws are passed. Debates are how kids are kept safe. Debates are good for society, for culture, for governance. Arguments, arguably, aren't. They're just two people barking and yelling and shouting and two opinions. So it's only a debate if you're willing to have your mind changed. So I now enter every argument or potential argument, hopefully it doesn't turn into one, hoping to have my mind changed. It doesn't mean I will. I'm just hoping if I'm ready to enter a debate with you, we have two totally black and white, blue and red, brick and soft cotton. Whatever the debate is, I am willing to have my mind changed, as you should be, and we can enter this debate. I love debate class in high school, by the way. And I agree with you, objectivity was a huge part of media training. I had it as well. Media training is what almost no one has, yet we all have social media. I'll continue to say that till I'm blue in the face, or am I white in the face? I don't know. We could have a debate about that. But yeah, we have to be able to have a debate with the idea that you and I, or this organization and that organization, are willing to have their mind changed. And if we are willing to have our mind changed, we can continue. We might never get closer to middle, and certainly never cross over to the other side or cross over to one side or the other. But at least we're willing. And that's what social media is lacking. That's why it gets the hate it's deserved, because almost everyone online doesn't have a media objectivity, to your point, in my opinion. They're simply there to hear their side of an argument. And when they're met with, and it's not all, there are many people, I've had my mind changed in debates online. I'm also kind and representative of my personal brand each time I'm in that, because I realize I'm not just me online, I'm associated to so many other elements that I represent in my community. And so I have different goalposts. When I'm online and enter any level of debate, I have to do that, knowing the associations and the affiliations, right down to my own children, who will and can be affected by everything I'm about to say, inadvertently or on purpose or with purpose or not. Not fair in many cases, but I am forever affiliated, at least for a while, with you. What I say is representative of you because we are connected professionally in this case. So a lot of people don't understand that. That comes in your media training. And so I hope more people learn media. I wish more people weren't given media channels without media training, frankly. But they are, because anyone can have them, including a 4-year-old. And that's where we have the parenting problem. We are teaching kids about media when they don't have media. This is media. This is media. We can call it fancy terms like Instagram. And you're a broadcaster, and you've never had broadcasting experience. You were given cameras, and these devices have incredible connection tools, globally and otherwise. And we're giving them to the smallest of our society. And it's really, really, it's alarming.
Yeah, you've put things into perspective that I never thought about, is that we should, anybody can have these things, these tools. It's like teaching a 4-year-old to drive a car. Well, not even throwing them in the car.
Or finding out they were in the car last night.
Yeah, that is scary.
It is scary, but I want to, as much as we talk about fear and as much as we go to nefarious behavior, I always like to balance it. There are far more, I truly believe this with my heart of hearts. I bet there's scientific evidence of it. But I truly believe if you left your door unlocked in many cases, please don't do this, but if you left your door unlocked in many cases in a neighborhood you've been a part of for a long time, more people would let you know you left it unlocked than would steal all your stuff. We all have a neighbor or a community, not all, but I don't know what the stats are. I certainly can't quote them, but I think 95, 98% of people are good. And there is a horrible set that we concentrate on when teaching our lessons. And there are people watching out for your children online. They're watching out for them at gym class. They're watching out for them in the parking lot after they leave gym class because you couldn't pick them up on time. They're watching out for them. They're feeding them. They're making them warm. They do that for us. They do that. You would do that for others as well. I truly believe that. And I think that of social too. As nefarious and negative as the narrative is of social media behaviors, and it is, I hear it too. I have met incredible human beings that cause and create change for the good. There are marginalized voices that would have never been heard without social media. There are values and morals and standards delivered by people who have had privileged upbringings like me to people who haven't. and the leader, the coach, the mentor they were never able to have in real life is that video gamer that you think is causing terrible things online, but your child finds value in the way, and you might find 20 years from now we have those as their celebrity mentors. There might be a creator online that you don't realize because you don't watch the show. You roll your eyes like other parents, you turn around, ugh, that's crap. You know what? It might not be crap. The content to you outside of the target demographic that it was targeted at looks like crap, but the values instilled and the things they're doing. The opposite exists, so please don't just accept that what they're watching is good for their mind. It could be mush as well, but you might find there's more nutrition and nutritional value in what your kids are consuming than you know. And that's the open-mindedness that I recommend to all parents, all educators, anyone in a coaching or mentorship or a leadership role, frankly. Have an open-mindedness to what we're consuming. Give people, we need to start, in my opinion, giving people the benefit of the doubt that things are good. That can be dangerous. But if we give people the benefit of the doubt, if you walk into your child's basement and they're on their phone, we immediately go to, they're doing brain mush things. Maybe they're reading War and Peace or another book or a valuable publication that you find in your family. Maybe they've downloaded an app in art that allows them to study better art. I've met kids all around this province who are following YouTube creators who can draw the human hand or the human eyeball, and they've become exponentially better artists than we could ever. They're taking university level global courses for free because a YouTube creator is teaching them art. And then their art degree comes quicker, or a variety of versions of this in all industries and sports and trades. You can now have a TikTok channel for welding and learn it online, which will evoke an interest or an intellectual opportunity for trade school that you never knew existed, because welding is what you really love. You consume hours of it on the couch. Your parents think you're on Snapchat, but you're actually learning a trade that's going to make you tens of hundreds of or millions of dollars. So these don't exist everywhere and all the time, but these are the benefit of the doubt opportunities that the channels purvey and offer. And we know this because adults are using them. And if adults are using them, how bad can they be? Because we're giving them to our kids for Christmas.
Mm-hmm. I like that you touched on the positive. I think that's a good way to end. Sure. Like we talked about the fear, we talked about the negative things of social media, but there are so many positives. And I think that's really important to not throw that aside, but to embrace that there's so much good that can come from social media. I think during COVID, one of the good things that came from social media is that people had more access to good things, and the good things entered their home that didn't before. And so, yeah, it was really hard. Yeah, there's really hard things that happened with COVID, but there are some good lessons that I think that we all learned, and a greater ability to get into people's homes for the positive.
I love that you reflected on that. I know a number of business owners locally in my area who would have been out of business without Zoom, without Instagram, without the ability for curbside pickup and the broadcast. Social media has done far more good to salvage or save than it has to destroy or hurt. And that doesn't just go for marketing and business. That's the positive side. Also, the other thing that I highly recommend as you wrap up is we are all our worst critic. Parents especially. And by the way, I have 3 kids. They're all adult now. They grew up through the social media channels. You will always question if you've been the best parent. You should, if you truly value loving and morals and standards. You should always question. And so you're your own worst critic. And so please understand, anyone listening or watching, please understand, don't be so hard on yourself. You're just a grown-up version of a young person trying to figure it out. We don't tell the kids that, but we try desperately to just figure it out. And this threw a massive curveball at the universe. Digital technology, which we didn't grow up with, while having underdeveloped brains and immature brains, Kids are figuring it out, and parents have to be the police officers, the nurses and doctors, and other major professions that you need many years of schooling. And you're doing it because you work for a living, 9 to 5, 40 plus hours a week, and all of the other extracurriculars. So don't be so hard on yourself. You're doing the best you can. The best thing you can give your kids is love. Value what they like. If a child comes to you with a play phone at 4 years old, what do? You
play with them.
You answer the phone. If they come to you with a pretend phone, you play with them, you answer their pretend phone. You know it's fake, you know it's not real, but they're 4 and you're going to have some joy and play with it. And we need to take that approach to the social channels. If a child comes to you and wants Snapchat or Instagram or a new cell phone, that doesn't mean they get it. It just means you can start a really important responsibility conversation, ask them why, and then don't doubt your parenting, because you do love them and you will guide their ship and you will be the voice inside their brain.
Perfect. That's great advice for all these people that are watching, that are fearing social media, that don't know what to do as parents. Is connect with your child and figure out like where they're at and give them what they're interested in.
Show them love. Even if you're so frustrated, just show them love. Show them that you care enough to talk about it. Doesn't mean they get Snapchat. It just means show them love.
Yeah.
Show them love. Tell me about Snapchat. You'll find out very quickly if they should have it, shouldn't have it, and their maturity level with it, and then you can do it together.
Perfect.
And I think take time to also disconnect. Well, like we didn't talk about that enough, but like, you know, take that photo that you're going to share, but set it aside, and then actually spend time with those that you love.
I agree. Or take that photo and just send it to grandma. You don't have to share it. It doesn't need likes on the internet. We can go old-fashioned and actually print it and put it in an envelope, and grandma would love to see it. We don't have to share everything we take. But you're right, disconnecting. And that's oral values, right? That's oral history. You know, the Indigenous community has done such a great job to purvey that, as my opinion, as a white privileged male. The Indigenous communities lead with oral history. That's because they didn't write it down. They had the opportunities to share it, language and culture. We can do a better job at sharing oral history. This is the way grandma and grandpa celebrated a holiday season. This is the way we went to the lake as kids and went fishing. We used this stuff, but don't do it in a shameful way. Disconnecting doesn't have to be shameful. We don't have to tell them, oh, you kids these days. We're on our devices too. We're using Wi-Fi too. We can all disconnect, and we don't have to be shameful about it. We can admit our addictions. So wonderful way to end it. Great job.
So again, thanks for being on with us, Joe. And how do people reach you? Your Joe social media.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you so much. Joe Social Media is the name of our agency. We handle a ton of marketing efforts and elements, but we really have a soft spot in our hearts for seniors who are using digital iPads and all the data and all the scary components. So this is a huge part of what we do at Joe Social Media on most of the platforms. I'm Joe Whitbread, JoeWhitbread. Which all kind of rhymes, which is nice. I'm also a safe place online, safe place for all questions, debate. I know there's lots of things that I might say in this that others would be like, I don't know about that guy. I welcome that debate if you're willing to have your mind changed, as I would be as well. So Joe Whitbread on all the channels, very safe place if you want to direct message me, or even on the live elements. And if you watched this or listened to this today, I'd love to hear from you.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you.
We'll see you on another episode of What Matters Most.